In my class also, I didn't have much friends. So even in lunch break, since I didn't have much friends, I used to spend my lunch breaks reading this book called Competitive Programmer's Handbook. I was solving 1400 rated problems. I couldn't solve any of them.
From your inside perspective, what makes an application stand out? What makes a recruiter's eyes light up?
Right. So I think now I can speak a bit openly about.
Have you ever wondered what it really takes to go from writing your first line of code to landing internships at Google and Rubrik? Today, I'm excited to sit down with Gaurish, a software engineer at Rubrik, former Google intern, and a master on Codeforces, to unpack his incredible journey from feeling lost in his first year of college to cracking some of the toughest technical interviews in the industry. We will talk competitive programming, resume secrets, handling interview pressure, and what really goes on behind the scenes at top tech companies. You are about to get a front row seat to one of the most relatable success stories in tech. This is Silicon Stories. Let's begin. So, Gaurish, let's rewind all the way back to the start. Take us to your first year of college. I think a lot of students have this grand plan, but what did you think your career path was going to look like? And now, standing where you are, how different is the reality?
Right. So when I had in my first year, it was COVID, right? And what had happened was there was a computer science quiz in my nearby college, and I was like, बहुत कुछ आता like when you just start out, you have a lot of confidence, right? That you know everything. So I had given that quiz and I had failed miserably. So I was like, okay, I want to get good at tech because I don't really know anything. And after getting into college, I realized that what I thought is a good college, it's not, right? I got my reality check that college is not good. And my senior told me that whatever you have to do by yourself. Teachers won't teach you anything. So that was another surprising moment that my parents are paying so much fees for a college and then I have to learn things on my own. So I was like, oh, okay, like if this is true, then I will have to work hard. From job point of view, I didn't know much about how the job market is or whatever at that time. But I started out with competitive programming, and my seniors just told me that keep doing it, it will help you. So the only thing I knew was if I keep doing competitive programming, it won't harm my career, and I would still be in somewhat of a good shape to land some job.
That's a powerful mindset. And it clearly paid off. Your CP achievements are seriously impressive. Who see that master rating and think it's impossible. What did that daily grind actually look like? Walk us through a day in the life of first year Gaurish, completely obsessed with CP.
Right. So personally, I am kind of an extremist. Like when I really want to do something, I kind of like to go all in on that. So my first year, I think first 1.5 year of college life has just been competitive programming. Even when college started, what I used to do is before college, like I used to wake a bit early. Either I would read something which I decided I want to read, or I would just randomly solve. Right. And then I would used to go to college. And in college, I didn't really talk to anyone. I didn't have much friends in my second year. I had some friends who were doing tech, but apart from that, in my class also, I didn't have much friends. So even in lunch break, since I didn't have much friends, I used to spend my lunch breaks reading this book called Competitive Programmer's Handbook. And that is how my days would go. And since my college had no CP culture as such, when I had joined, only there were like 1 or 2 seniors who had already passed out. Right. So I joined a lot of online communities. I did courses online, and that is how I started out with competitive programming. I heavily relied on online communities for my growth, and yeah, that is how it happened. Speaking of the journey, so it was not in a structured way like people think. It was in a very hazy way. So I think in my first year, then Google used to still have Code Jam and Hash Code and all these competitions. So one of my seniors, who was I think expert at that time, reached out to me that, hey, let's do this. And I was like, great. But I didn't know anything. I was just pupil or something. I didn't know much. I just knew ad hoc things. So he was like, you would need to learn graphs for this because this hash code competition requires graph knowledge. Usually we do BFS, DFS. So I was like, okay, by any way, I am going to learn graphs, and I didn't know how to code them out. So I just knew I saw a few videos online regarding how graphs work and so on and so forth. And I didn't know what adjacency list was. So what I used to do, I used to create a map, right? Map of int comma vector. And
Yeah.
that is how I used to have a adjacency list, or I used to have a map of pair int comma int, something of that sort. Then I later realized that okay, adjacency list and everything exists. So that is how I learned graphs. After that, I did watch some more videos and so on and so forth. Then yeah, I learned graphs. I think this was January or February 2022 or somewhere around 2022, not quite sure. After that, I think in my first year, I became expert because I was doing it all day, so it was bound to happen. And then I still pushed, and I was able to get to CM, I think, by my fourth sem, mid fourth sem or something like that. And then I took a bit of break from CP.
That's really impressive. But that kind of intense focus can't be easy. I have to ask. Everyone hits a wall. That frustration of staring at a problem for hours and just not getting it. Oh, how did you deal with that burnout or that feeling of being stuck?
Very interesting. I can relate with this a lot. I think when I was solving 1400 rated problems, I couldn't solve any of them. So usually people solve rating wise. So when I was solving 1400 rated problems, I found it really difficult to solve them because anything I was not able to get the logic, no matter what I did. So I reached out to Priyansh Agarwal, if you know, like I was student in his course at that time. So I was like, I'm not able to solve 1400 rated problems. And I also saw that you struggled a bit in the 1600 range. So what do you suggest? So he mentioned that keep solving, right? It happens with everyone at a rating. Like for everyone, the rating might be different, but the idea is to keep going. And at that point, it didn't make sense because I was like, how is this a solution? Is what I thought. But I think that is the key. Like there will be moments where you will feel that you have kind of plateaued, but the idea is to keep going because there are several aspects of competitive programming, and maybe to get better at a certain aspect you need to make something better. For example, something that helped me get from expert to beyond was really getting good at math, which I was very bad at. So speaking of burnout, it depends on how badly you want to improve. So it's okay to feel that you're blocked. Reach out to people who you look up to or some online community, right? They will more or less guide you that see, it's very natural to feel like this, but the idea is to not get discouraged and leave competitive programming. The idea is to try harder, try to analyze what you're bad at because there is something that's going wrong. That's why you're stuck, right? And try to improve at that. And it's not kind of impossible.
That's great advice for the long term. But let's talk about the real time nightmare for every interviewee. Your mind goes blank. You're completely stuck. The panic starts to set in. In that moment, what is your practical step by step advice to recover?
Very interesting. I you start getting stuck, you start
Given your
panicking
experience,
under the
how do you
moment,
handle
and then
unexpected challenge?
your thoughts go all over the process. What might actually help is giving a lot of mock interviews because when you give mock interviews, things like this are bound to happen. So if you give like mock interviews a lot, you will get comfortable with this. When Google had opened their internship, I had given my mock interview to one of my seniors, and I wasn't able to solve the problem at all. Like I was kind of overconfident that okay, I'll be able to do it, but during the interview, I was not able to do it, and I kind of did the same thing. I panicked. I couldn't solve the problem. What I realized was that your interviewer will more or less throw hints at you. Of course, for like there'll be some points deducted, but the key idea is to try to listen to the interviewer what they're trying to say, right? because they're kind of trying to help you with hints. And once, like, if you are able to listen to what your interviewer is trying to say, the interviewer might also be trying to point out where you're going wrong. So if you're able to listen to your interviewer, try to understand where you're going wrong, try to have a pen and paper along your side, because I think noting things down really helps. So if you can do that with consistent practice, I think you should be able to recover. Now, how should you recover? You should try to communicate your thought process to the interviewer. So depending upon the interviewer might try to correct you. Like if they know a test case, they might say that, but this does not work for this. And then you might be like, and think ahead. And there is a chance that with the hints, and since the interviewer knows your thought process, you might be able to recover from the same.
Thank you for that. It's super practical. Now, I want to talk about what I'm calling a dreamed dilemma. You had a return offer from Google, but you chose to go to Rubrik. What were the one or two biggest factors that made you choose Rubrik over Google?
Right. So there were quite a bit of factors. One of them was prestige. Getting into Rubrik is an opportunity that doesn't come very often, and the work there was really good. When I did my 6 month intern at Rubrik, I really felt challenged. Like, I don't think I've worked harder in my life ever for anything, including competitive programming. So it felt like an achievement when I did so. Google is also very great, right? But the thing that more or less made my decision is, of course, the work. Second, the like prestige, and third, like kind of the compensation. And to this day, I really enjoy the work, and that is more or less that made me choose to.
That makes perfect sense. Now, for the listeners who are hearing this and immediately want to apply, from your inside perspective, what makes an application stand out? What makes a recruiter's eyes light up?
So you really need to show that you have good data structure and algorithms problem solving ability, because the Rubrik winter internship process is going to be as follows. Like last year it was as follows, this year not quite sure, but more or less you apply, you will get an online assessment. The online assessment is relatively hard. So usually if you look at the problem ratings, if you search, if you find CF equivalent, then I think the easiest starts at around 1700 or 1800, something like that. And then it goes to, like, the hardest problem in the set will be 24, 2600, right? One is getting shortlisted to this OA. So you need to show you have good DSA skills, right? And one more thing is try to showcase your CGPA, because as far as I have heard, there is a shortlist on CGPA. I think that is 8. Like last year, people were getting rejected despite having very good CP profiles because their CGPA was below 8. And so once this is done, OA. So if you're in the top, whatever they decide to choose, there will be 2 or 3 tech interviews depending upon how you have performed, right? And these tech interviews are solely advanced algorithms. You can prepare CSES. CSES.fi is a very well-known website. You can prepare standard advanced algorithms from there, from the tree section, graph section, dynamic programming section. You can go through the math section as well. So you can expect, let's say, around a problem of 1900 rating, 1000 rating, something in the ballpark of 2000 plus minus 200. And you would be expected to solve that in around 40 minutes with code, and test cases would be run against your code.
Now, DSA is absolutely the key. Let's rewind to your interview days. I'd love to hear the story. Walk us through your Google interview experience. How many rounds were there? And what was the toughest problem you were asked? And how did you tackle it?
Right. So I think now I can speak a bit openly about my Google intern interviews, right? So interestingly, there is a very interesting story regarding my Google internship process. So I think around July or I think September 2023, what happened was I got shortlisted for Google interview process. And as like if people don't know, there is no online assessment for Google. They directly shortlist you for off during off campus. On campus, you do have an online assessment. So I was shortlisted, and in my first interview, I was asked a problem of trees, and the problem was of sorts like this: like you are given a tree, and you need to break it down into K parts, right? Basically, remove, let's say, K edges or something like that. And after removing those, like, is it possible to divide the tree after removing K edges such that all of the remaining parts are of the same size? This was the problem. Now, this is a very straightforward subtree kind of problem. Like it's not straightforward, but if you have practiced trees, DP on trees, these subtree ideas a lot, this becomes very straightforward. So I was able to solve it fairly quickly, right? And there was a second problem. And interestingly, I was going through the lead code discuss section, and I had found the problem uh, earlier. I'm not quite sure, but the problem was you are given a circle, and there are many circles, and you want to know number of connected components, or you want to do something like that. So the idea is to use a bit of geometry here. You need to know how circles intersect, so you need to know the formula for those. And once you do that, you have to create a graph. And once you create a graph, counting the number of connected components, counting the size of each connected component, returning that becomes very easy. So this was my first interview. My second interview, what happened interestingly was I was asked a question, right? I was asked a problem, right? So I gave a new approach to the interviewer, and the interviewer, I think the intended approach was some binary search and sorting based thing, which worked in big O and login. But I had given a map based solution, which was also big O and login and O of n space. At the end of the day, the time and space complexity were the same. And because this was kind of a new idea, I had to spend a lot of my time trying to explain why this works, but eventually that went well. And yes, I was asked one more problem. I don't really remember what that was, but the idea is that you will be asked around either one hard or two problems. Both will be of medium hard difficulty, and you will be given something similar to a Google Doc and Sublime combination. Like the code won't run, but you are expected to write the code, and you are expected to write it cleanly, explain it well, have good variable names, and solve it under 45 minutes. So I think it more or less boils down to how you can manage your time to solve two problems in 45 minutes, both when they are medium hard.
And how did the interview process and the style of questions at Rubrik differ from Google? Was there a particular interview question or session that really stood out to you?
So, speaking about the interview, the exact problem, I don't think I would be able to say right now. But the thing is that the problems were of and the problems were much harder. If you see CF rating wise, I think Google problems are like 1600, 1700, around that rating range. Rubrik, I think, was around 2000. And one more interesting thing about Rubrik was that, let's say there is a problem that involves Fenwick trees. Just imagine, like, right, which is very, like, it may be asked in the interviews. So you are kind of expected to know how to write down a Fenwick tree, why Fenwick tree works, right? So both of the problems, I think first one was involving graphs, right? Strongly connected components. And the second one was an advanced tree based problem, which involved some sort of LCA. So in both of these problems, I was asked to code out these finding SCC, writing, like coding down LCA from scratch, the big of log and optimization one. And I think the main difference is test cases were run against my code. So it is very important to be precise, because if you are not able to pass the test cases that are given by the interviewer, then you would lose points for the same.
It's a huge difference. So, pulling all of this together, If you had to give just one piece of advice to someone preparing for these top tier interviews, what would it be?
Yeah, if someone is watching this podcast and you're doing well in DSA, don't assume you will do well in interviews as well. Doing good in interviews, not the DSA part of it, but in general, managing your time, being able to clarify your thought, being able to communicate your thoughts to the interviewer, it's a different skill. So prepare for that very well. Preparing for that makes a lot of difference. Don't be overconfident that I know a lot of DSA, so these interviews will be a cakewalk. Problem solving wise, they might be relatively easy if you have done a lot of DSA, but it is very important to communicate because you are also being judged on that. And coding and the correctness is a part of your scoring. So basically, in any company you go, the interviews are scored. The communication, the clarification, all of those also contain points. So prepare well accordingly.
I also saw something really unique. You worked as an open source contributor at XAI. How did you even find that opportunity? And what kind of work were you doing there?
So what happened was there was a Codeforces blog saying that they require Codeforces Division 1 participants, basically people with rating 1900 or above, to improve their LLMs, right? So basically we had to train their LLMs to be better at competitive programming, and it was a remote opportunity. In art, I think right now there are interviews for all of this, but during my time there were no interviews. It was just they see your profile. If they are happy, they just onboard you because they wanted a lot of people at that time. So a lot of people with me who I know from the competitive programming community had joined in. A lot of people eventually left because it was not a lot of engineering sort of work. It was more of just helping their LLMs, training their LLMs, guiding their LLMs, basically making them more of a better problem solver. So that was the experience at XI. I did it for a month or two and then left.
Shifting gears to resumes, you've seen a lot of them. If you only had 30 seconds to scan a stranger's resume, what are the top 2 to 3 things your eyes instantly dart to?
One is the project. I think a lot of people don't put projects, like don't explain projects well. So if you have projects, if you have their live links, that helps a lot. Apart from that, the achievements, projects, number one, what kind of projects you have made. Like a lot of people, some resumes I see very good at competitive programming, but don't have any projects. It becomes kind of hard to shortlist you if someone else has good DSA as well as excellent projects. So I think projects matter a lot. After projects, then maybe like depending upon the company or CGPA might matter, not matter. Yeah, if the company has some sort of DSA criteria, then definitely looking like showcasing in your resume that you have some sort of DSA would definitely help.
Since Rubrik is hiring, I'm sure you're getting flooded with referral requests. When you look at these resumes, what's the most common mistake you see?
Interesting. So as I said, right, the first thing that I see in the resume is, okay, how much data sets and algorithms a person has done. So even if you have not done a lot, I think you should still mention the same in your resume because that is going to matter a lot. Apart from that, this year there is a lot of competition. So what I did was I looked at all the profiles, and for the top 20 or 30 people that I could see, I referred them. But in general, showcase that you have done DSA, like even if you have not done competitive programming, show that you have solved all of these things, right? You have participated in these contests. So that would definitely help a lot.
You've now had a taste of both worlds, the massive scale of Google and the high growth environment of a unicorn like Rubrik. For someone choosing, what are the biggest cultural differences? Is it about ownership, pace, or something else?
Okay, so I think Google pampers you a lot. I think one of the good and bad sides of Google is that they keep you very well. They don't give you a lot of stress. Like there are some teams like maybe cloud that are kind of stressful to work at. But apart from that, usually it's not very stressful. There will be periods that are stressful, of course, when you have deadlines to meet. But in general, they keep you very well. The perks, the extra perks of being at Google, the vending machines, the free food, right? The reimbursements that you get for every single thing. That's amazing. These things are there in Rubrik, but like not as much as Google. Like Google, I think pampers the most out of any company, and it kind of makes it hard for you to shift eventually. In terms of work, like Rubrik has similar, like the work culture is a bit more intense in Rubrik, but in terms of the culture, it's very similar to Google in terms of that same cabs are given, there's free food. Apart from that, there are no working hours, so you can come and go anytime. And basically, in Rubrik, it's more of a meritocracy. So the better you work, the the better you work, the more you are able to showcase that how good you are of an engineer. You will be rewarded, and because the company is slightly smaller, you can have your increments faster. You can learn more things because there is more responsibility upon you. But it also depends what kind of person you are. So if you don't want so much ownership, if you want to live a life of your own apart from the work you do, then I think Google is a better choice because Google gives you the option to live your own life apart from the work you do. But if you really enjoy engineering, I think one of the things I've seen at Rubrik is that everyone is more or less a nerd in some sort, right? Not a nerd, but everyone enjoys engineering. So if you truly enjoy engineering, are passionate for it, you can look up to working at startups like Rubrik, etc.
Let's get into some deep wisdom. What's the single biggest lesson you've learned as a professional engineer? The thing that no college course could ever really teach you.
In my college, I never really gave importance to CS fundamentals that much. I think I was just like, why to study just for marks, mug it up, throw it in the exam, forget about it. But going back, if there was one thing I would change is I would actually spend time learning CS fundamentals because they are very important. It was not that I was bad at it, but the depth at which it is required in the work I do is a lot. So right now I'm spending a lot of time learning the fundamentals, and we often fantasize over tools that we use. That okay, this is the tech stack. I'm going to use this, that. What matters more is how well you are well versed with the fundamentals. Apart from that, something that I didn't know in my college life, I've become a much better team player since I didn't do much team activities in my college life. I wasn't such a great team player, but working, realized that communication matters a lot, people matter a lot, documenting everything that you do matters a lot. Because let's say tomorrow you do, like I had a very chaotic way to do things in my college life. But the idea is that if you make a project, right, if someone wants to read something about it, you shouldn't be the dependent source. Like if you're absent, they'll be blocked. That should not be the case. So you should document things. So if you're making a project, it's a very nice idea to document what decisions you have made, what is the architecture, so on and so forth, making design documents. And also thinking at scale is something that I didn't really see in college because I hadn't made much scalable projects. Like even if I did make scalable projects, there was nobody to tell me that this is wrong, this is right, so on and so forth. So I think, yeah, majority of my time now goes understanding the fundamentals, spending more time. Like if I show even now, just give me 1 second, I'm spending my time reading a lot of books about fundamentals. So if you do get some time in your college life, do spend learning fundamentals a lot because, okay, AI is there, can code it for you, but do you really know why the things that AI has done are being done, right? Or are you just accepting whatever it is telling without true knowledge? So one of those things, like those things matter a lot.
This has all been incredible advice. To wrap up, let's do a classic but powerful one. Looking back on your entire wild journey, what's one thing you'd tell your younger self to do more and one thing to do less?
To do more, I think like two things. One, CS fundamentals, of course. Second, like three things maybe. Second, explore a bit of more open source, all of these things. Was not that kind of guy, but now it seems quite interesting. So I'm exploring that. Third, what happened was that eventually, like once after my fourth sem, I became really chill. I don't think I practiced much on Codeforces and all of these platforms. I did to a extent, but not as much as I was doing in my first and second year. So I think one of the things that I would tell my earlier self that if you ever reach a certain goal, that does not mean like you should stop there. It just means that you are able to do more. So you should kind of push more. And one thing that I would discourage my college self to do would probably, I think it would be to talk to people more and to take it a bit chill. I wouldn't say that like I was very, very serious in my college life. Like there has been a transition of how I am as a person from first year to fourth year. On first year, I wouldn't used to talk to people like I was very paranoid and I was very serious, right? So I was like a no bullshit person, kind of an elitist. All of those things changed a lot after I made some really good friends, and by the fourth year, I changed myself a lot. So in terms of that, I think I would tell my earlier self to relax a bit in terms of these other things. And yeah, that is more or less it.
Talk to people more and take it a bit chill. I think that's advice so many of us need to hear. Gaurish, thank you so much. Been an incredibly generous and insightful conversation. I know the audience is going to get immense value from this. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks a lot and all the best for everyone who's attempting the interviews. I hope you get in soon and see you at, like, if you do get in, for people who are watching, see you in the office.
For everyone listening, I hope you take this not as a blueprint to copy, but as inspiration to build your own path. Remember that everyone starts somewhere, everyone gets stuck, and with consistent effort and a willingness to learn your code, your interviews, and your peers, you can achieve incredible things. And to everyone listening, keep coding, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next one.